Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Marcus Pochner. I am part of the Uplands team. I manage the community engagement activities. And I do want to thank you for taking time this morning to join us to learn about this platform. It has been our sincere desire to find ways to still, during COVID-19, to engage with the community, to be creative, and try to find ways where you can actually log in, give us real information and feedback about different areas of the plan. And we can actually learn from you about your terrific neighborhoods, how to blend more into your neighborhoods and really enrich the Uplands planning effort. So I do want to say to those of you who have joined us, we really appreciate it. We understand this is extra time. I'm just going to say that today this is really meant to be more of kind of a live back and forth. We're certainly able to promote people if you have questions. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A button that will allow you to kind of communicate directly with me. We'll monitor that. I'll certainly be able to call on you if you have follow-up questions or anything that you'd like to ask. But for now, I think it's important if we can go to the next slide, please. And feel free here, Jasper is running the slides if you want to move us through it whenever you are ready, Jasper. But I do want to say, you know, this is a challenging time to kind of do community engagement. And so we have worked really hard to create a digital design workshop, a platform, if you will, where you can go on at any time of the day or night and give us feedback kind of at your leisure, at your own time, and really instruct us again about how to improve our plan. So I'll walk you through kind of a site overview. Then there are 4 primary focus areas that we want to learn about, to learn from you and really hear your contributions to the site. And then we'll talk about that and we'll walk you through those steps. So next slide, please. This, which all of you certainly understand, those of you that have been engaged in this process, and I hope that we have some new people joining us as well. This is the Uplands site. So this kind of is the overall site. It's a map that we have shown from our first community meeting. Overall, there are 5 non-contiguous parcels. So if you look at this site, you see parcel A, which is the largest site here. It really is outlined by Lowell 84th to 88th, and then Federal Boulevard, kind of that square there. You really see, sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback, so I'll drop off of that. So that just is the largest site, parcel A. Then if you cross Federal Boulevard to the east, you see parcel C. It really is to the north primarily of Crown Point Academy and the existing condos that are there, and takes you all the way to Kamenish Park. And really understand that site. There's a small site, parcel E there. Then as you kind of continue on back over here to your left, you see parcel B. Parcel B is completely subsumed within the Observatory Heights neighborhood, and then Shaw Heights to the north. It's both sides of Bradburn Drive. And this is an area that we have spent particular effort on all sites, but really have worked with this because we understand this is directly embedded in some existing neighborhoods. So we've been very thoughtful about trying to understand how to plan it, how to reflect the edges and blend into the community. And lastly is parcel D. That is the site that kind of falls and has more of a downtown Denver view that looks to the southeast of this site. So we'll come to those as well. I just want to reintroduce you again. This is 233 acres. I want to start, and I'm going to say it again. We think these are remarkable and wonderful neighborhoods that are here today. Our goal is to blend and honor Shaw Heights, Observatory Heights, the condos, all the neighborhoods that are really there, the parks, and really try to augment and add to and contribute to your neighborhood. So next slide, please. These are those 4 areas of focus that I think we've really tried to think about. What can we do? What can we really learn from the community? And where would you like to direct? So we've asked this a question a lot. What would you like to contribute to? These are the items that continually come up. You want to talk about parks and pedestrian connectivity, the streetscapes, that way it kind of blends into your community, makes that transition from your edges. Then we'll go to the village center. That's actually maybe our last topic we'll go to, and we'll also talk about architectural. I think we all really think of the remarkable architectural character, the context, if you will, that is already in the neighborhood. And we want to learn from you, understand how to complement that, and also bring some kind of modern architecture to that as well. So we'll have Paul, our architect, walk through that. The other 3, our principal planner, Bonnie Najelic, is going to lead us through those discussions. Next slide, please. This is up. Frankly, you can have this. You can call me at any time. That is my office number, 303-825-1671. That is my email, marcus@thepachnercompany.com. We want you to feel free to reach out to us to learn more. If you have questions about how to do this, if you get hung up, we all understand this is kind of a digital divide right now. It's a digital world. And so as you work through this, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and we can walk you through that. So next slide, please. What I do want to say here, and kind of thinking about what we're doing for everybody who's looking at this. So I've been presenting kind of from more of a PDF view. This screen that we're looking at now is actually the platform that we have built to help you walk through this design workshop. So this is the platform that you are going to go to whenever you want. You can go there now if you want. So you'd go to your browser and you'd go to uplands.conveo.com/home. So I'm going to do that again. You can see it right at the top of this page. You can see where you go to. So if you want to go there now and we can walk through this together, you go to uplands.conveo, conveio.com/home. And that will take you to this screen that we are seeing here. So we're going to go back and forth today really to show you this platform that we've created, to show you how to be iterative, to go back and forth with us, to give us your feedback. But this is the site itself, what the platform looks like and how you can engage with us. So the very first thing that we want you to know once you get there is we would request respectfully that you register your account. So you see registered circled there. We want to hear from you. We want to know that feedback. And frankly, if you have additional questions, we want to be able to email you back and say, hey, can we get some clarity on this or have kind of more of a discussion about it? So we'd ask you to go to that top of the toolbar there on this homepage and you see register. Go to register, click that, and then it will simply walk you through a very simple your name and email address to register your account. That then allows us to have that contact to work back with you. Then you will see right below this, it goes to the 4 focus areas. These are, again, those areas that really show that we want to hear. These are the ways that we can really engage best with you. So again, this just shows here on the website, we have the parks and pedestrian connectivity, the streetscapes, the architecture, and the village town center. And I think what we can do here, I just want to point out, if you're not interested in all 4 of these kind of categories, feel free to just comment on the ones that really drive you. Maybe it's the architectural that really matters to you. Maybe it is those parks to understand it. You know, frankly, I think the village center, that's more of the town center, the heart, the mixed use center of this along Federal. That's something that I think, honestly, we'd love to have your feedback on. It's something that's really in planning still. It's not as close to Shaw Heights and Observatory Heights. It's really more on the Federal corridor. And it allows us to hear about that character, to really establish a sense of place for this site. So again, these are the 4 topics. We'd love to hear from you on all 4 of them, but if you're only interested in a couple, feel free to just go give us comments there. So I think that gives us a pretty good overview of what the web page itself feels like, how you're going to be able to walk through this. Again, register and then pick your focus area that you'd like to go back and forth on. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Jasper. What we are doing now is we are coming back to our presentation, and I'm going to have our specialists. So we have specialists for each one of these areas that we wanted to provide our participants today, and in video form, our participants in the future, really a background or kind of the basis of design for each of these segments or each of these focus areas. So first, we're going to go, as I said, we're going to transition to the parks and the pedestrian connections, those really core elements of the public amenities. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie Nizelik, who's our principal planner with Norris Design. Bonnie, it's all yours. Take it over.
Thanks, Marcus. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Bonnie with Norris Design, and we are the planners and landscape architects on the project. If you could go to the next slide. So first, we want to just talk about a couple of categories of parks, describe each of the different categories and what that means, and then walk through how to share your feedback. So here again, you can see the overall master plan for Uplands. Anything that you can see here in green is a type of park. So first we have 34 acres of land dedicated to the city. So that's public land dedication. You can see exactly right there, there's an 11-acre park in the northwest corner, a 10-acre park in the eastern middle of parcel A. If you go to parcel C, we have a 3-acre public park. And then parcel D, you can see another 4.2-acre public park adjacent to Cobblestone Park. And then in parcel B, we have 2 public land dedications, one on the north side and then one on the south side, which really gives that opportunity to preserve those sunset views we've heard so much about. So the public land dedication, that's all land that will be dedicated to the city. They will own and they will maintain that land, and it will be designed in conjunction with the neighbors and the city, and ultimately built by this city. The next category of parks is the view corridors. So we have 6 acres of land dedicated for view corridors. The first one is in parcel B, right along Lowell Boulevard, again, helping to protect that sunset view we hear so much about. And then the second one is along Federal Boulevard in parcel D, really preserving that view downtown. The balance of the parks are these lighter green parks, which are public uplands parks. So those parks will be developed in conjunction with the adjacent neighborhoods. They will be part of the uplands community, but they will have public access to everyone. We're still working through the design details of those parks and the ultimate size and location of each of those, but we'd love to hear some ideas from all of you on potential amenities. With that, Jasper, I think if you want to go to the Conveo site, we can walk through how we can get some feedback on these items. So again, if you want to click on that Parks and Pedestrian Connectivity tab, you show up on this page here. And again, this website has, some of this key information that we just walked through, is the different types of parks that are available. So again, this public land dedication, you can see here circled in red, this is the 34 acres of public land dedication that will be owned, maintained, and constructed by the city. And here, this is our first opportunity for public feedback. So again, you can do this, real time with us, or you can come back to this website and walk through these details. But on the left side of the screen, you can see this blue question mark, which gives you an option to pick your top 3. So these are different amenities that could show up in the public land dedication. So open lawn area, basketball courts, community gardens, outdoor classrooms, trails. There's a whole list of different amenities. And what we'd like you to do is select your top 3. So on the left side, you can see first choice, second choice, third choice, and just pick the 3 that are, the ones that you would most like to see in the public land dedication.
And Bonnie, just a clarification for me. So on the public land dedication, does the Uplands team, because it is a dedication, right? Do we actually end up planning those parks, or who ultimately plans those? And what will we do with this information that we collect from people, these ideas we collect from people?
Great question. So we will take all of these ideas that we collect and we'll share them with the city. The city will really take the lead on designing the public land dedication parks. We'll participate in that, and the city will reach out to the residents of Westminster and these communities specifically to help design those public parks. But the city will take that lead, and we'll share all these amenity ideas and preferences with them as they start to look at their design solutions.
Great. And I just wanted to say that because I think it's important to, restate that, right? That the city does, these will be public land dedications that become city land, and they certainly are in charge of planning that. But people think of this community more holistically, right? And those amenities. So we want that feedback as well. It also informs kind of the private parks, of course, that are open to all, but the uplands parks that we'll talk about. So I just want you to know that although this information probably is shared directly with the city on the PLD parks, it's still very important for us to really understand the character of the place that we're creating.
Perfect. Thank you. So if you can continue to scroll down this page on the website, we want to look at some different amenity landscape treatments. And Jasper, if you want to show, some of the options exactly, you can zoom in on these different images, study them in a little bit more detail. And again, you can go over to that blue circle with the question mark. And in this section, we want you to pick your top amenities. So each of these numbers 1 through 12 corresponds to one of the images on the page behind this. So let us know what your 3 favorite images are, like which one speaks to you when you look at the types of parks that you like to spend your time in. And if you want to go continue scrolling down. So again, that next section of parks we have are the public uplands parks, which will be developed with each neighborhood within the uplands community by the uplands development team. They will not be owned and maintained by the city, but they will have complete public access.
Bonnie, I was just going to say, and maybe add a comment here as you go to this next upland parks and talk about the amenity functions. Sometimes we hear like, hey, we the neighbors, right? People that live there in Shaw Heights or wherever the neighborhood be, like we have direct communication to the city, right? We can do that on our own. We're certainly capable, and we couldn't agree more that those neighbors, all of our neighbors, are capable of speaking directly to the city. But it's important in context, right, to understand what feedback you're giving, right? So I think one of the reasons we're trying this platform, and I think Bonnie, you would agree, is that it's important to see the map and these amenities to really provide context in the scope of the development, right? People want to understand where these parks are at, maybe how they live or function differently. So is that fair? Why that information is probably important to the city?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we want to design, a comprehensive park and amenity program. So if we see a lot of comments of, say, a basketball court in the public land dedication, there's a lot of preference towards an amenity like that. We probably don't need to include that amenity in the public uplands parks. So just understanding how all these pieces can best work together to create a comprehensive amenity package. So again, this is the Uplands Park section, very similar to the public park section we just looked at. If you go back to that blue circle with the question mark, you can select which of these 3 amenities are your top 3 amenities to see within the Uplands Parks. So the Uplands Parks are, generally a more intimate park size. So the amenities are a little bit different. We might have things like a pocket library, which is, kind of a leave a book, take a book idea, or small play features, or even community gardens. If you want to continue scrolling down. Exactly. And now we have some additional amenity photos to, again, you can go zoom in on those, study those in quite a bit of detail, and then select your top 3. So for example, number 5 here, you can see what a pocket library might look like.
And Jasper, I may ask, if you don't mind here, just that the functionality above that, that's the zoom button. So all of these images, when they load up on the screen in front of you all, we're not, they're hard to see, right? So you can use those zoom buttons there to zoom in or out to kind of look at that. You can download the images if you want to look at them closer. Bonnie was mentioning that pop-up library, or that kind of space there in number 5, to really understand what that is and how it could interact in some of these spaces, the climbing walls, number 6. But you can get a better feel for that. And feel free, if you want to just give generalized comments at the bottom as well, where there's more open answers, talk about some of those images. We'd encourage that type of feedback as well, right? Go ahead and write anything if you'd like to. Hey, I really like the image in 5. I'm not very supportive of kind of maybe how 3 looks. We're certainly open to that type of feedback.
Yeah, and I think one just great point, Jasper, if you want to go back to that blue circle with the question mark, in all these different sections, when you pick your top 3, you want to make sure to hit this blue submit button. That's the way to save your preferences so that we can see those. All right, and then the last piece of interactivity we have with the within parks and pedestrian connectivity is the trails map. So again, you can see the different trail corridors that we're proposing. Today, there's limited pedestrian connectivity across Uplands. Much of the perimeter streets are lacking in sidewalks. So the orange dashed lines in here, you can start seeing how all the surrounding streets will be improved to incorporate pedestrian connectivity, and then additional connections to places like Kamenish Park and Highland Hills, getting better connections down to Cobblestone Park through Parcel D, and then additional pedestrian connections through Parcel B. So if you can scroll down to the next piece. So here again, you can zoom in on this map and study those in quite a bit of detail. The upper left-hand side of the map has a legend, so you can see what those trail and sidewalk widths are proposed as. And then within here, you can see, you can click anywhere to add a comment. And we'd really like to see what places you like to walk to within the neighborhood. Make sure we're providing the best connections to get people to places. For example, there's a bus stop at Federal and 86th today that has limited sidewalks to it. If that's a use that you currently use and see yourself using in the future, please note that, and we'll make sure to consider that and look at different options to help improve the connections to that bus stop.
Great. Bonnie, I have a generalized question. Actually, if you could keep that slide there, that would be great, Jasper. There was a question that came up, and I'm trying, just as I receive comments or questions, to come back to them, that came up really about Parcel B. And we all know Parcel B on the lower left part of the map here, really Observatory Heights and then transitions to Shaw Heights. That area along Lowell is really important, and the city has done a great job of wanting to protect that as well, right? The view corridors, the PLD on the southern part, and then the PLD on the northern part. Just that question, I mean, that is protecting kind of more historic or more traditional views there, right? Is that what the city was asking? There was a question about some clarity on Parcel B there for the parks.
And I'm sorry, could you say exactly what that question was?
Yeah, I think the question was really about kind of our future planning. I think there was an intimation that we don't want this area to be open. I'm going to read into that. There's recently been some no trespassing signs that have been put up on that.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify that we're not the owners of that site yet. Those were put up by the owners, but that doesn't have anything to do with what we're planning on the site, right?
Yeah.
We're planning this. You go through a city process, and I don't know how to be more clear than to look at Parcel B and show what we're showing here. Will those be publicly accessible lands that are there on Parcel B?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 3.0 acre public land dedication on the north side of Bradburn, the 3.2 acre view corridor to the south, and a 3.7 acre public land dedication park on the very south end. All that will be publicly dedicated. It will be given to the city for ownership and maintenance, and will have public access. So that entire length along Lowell within Parcel B will have public access. During the design process, we will legally convey that land to the city, and then they will take the lead on the design solutions and construction of those improvements, but all that will be public land.
Great. And I just honestly, I want to compliment the community. I think they have done such a great job of saying that, honoring that historic view corridor, saying how important it is to the site, and really understanding that corridor there, the views, as we all know, off of Observatory Heights, and looking back, to the mountains, to the area, and also just frankly for safe patches on Bradburn. So I agree with the community, the question. This is a wonderful protection, if you will, of those kind of views that are there today. So we appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from the neighborhood and the city about really keeping those corridors open and completely publicly accessible. Great. I'm going to hand this back to Bonnie because we're going to go. So just so everybody's tracking it, we've had a few additional participants join us. We're walking through the 4 focus areas that we've created on this platform. Folks, it is challenging to create a way to do kind of a digital design workshop, right? To find a way for you. So what we've tried to do are think of questions that we have heard you ask about, that things you want to be more informed on, and things that you frankly want to provide more detail on or see. So we think it's really important. I'll just remind everybody, you can go to the website now and go through this. It's uplands.conveo, excuse me, that's why it's hard to spell as well, conveo.com, and then you go backslash home. And that website address, that's a mouthful to say, is in your chat function. So we'll put it up there so anybody can see that. So if you go to chat at the bottom of your screen and click on that, you can click and go directly to this website that we're trying to walk you through on how to give live feedback. So Bonnie, my apologies for the interruption, but now we're going to go to the streetscapes and the community edges, really thinking about how we transition from your existing homes, existing neighborhoods into this space.
Perfect. Jasper, can you go to the next slide, please? So again, within this section, we want to identify the 4 main areas and edges of the streetscape that are contributing factors to integrating with the neighborhood. And then again, walk through the Conveo platform on how to share your feedback on this topic. All right, so again, at the top of the website, you can select streetscapes to get to this section. And then we'll start with the map overview. So kind of the key perimeter streets that we want to talk about are 88th, 84th, Lowell, and Federal, and want to give an opportunity to have all of you study those street sections. We walked through them on a handful of different community meetings in the past, but there's a lot of detail in this. So within this platform, you can, again, zoom in on those sections and really understand the details of those. But first, we just wanted to walk through a quick overview. So here on the left side of the screen, we have 88th Avenue, and I'm not going to be able to see quite those dimensions. Again, when we zoom down to the bottom of the website, you can see some of those details. But 88th is, the north portion of both parcels A and parcels B. Parcel A and parcel C. We are making improvements to this street section. All the improvements are on any additional land required for these street sections are within the Uplands development. So no land on the north side of 88th is being considered. Any additional improvements will be on the south side of 88th. So this revised street section includes 2 travel lanes. There's a median and, thank you, a turn lane. We're proposing bike lanes on both sides to help with pedestrian bicycle connectivity to the parks to the east. And then there's an on-street parking lane on the south side of the section. The balance of the section includes a tree lawn and then a wide 10-foot walk, and then 18-foot buffer before we get to the homes on the south side. If you scroll over to the right, we can look at 84th in a little bit of detail. So this is the north sides of parcel B and parcel D and the south side of parcel A. This street section has a slightly different cross section. Again, it has travel lanes, it has bike lanes and on-street parking. And then there's a tree lawn and a slightly narrower walk, just 8 feet, since it has a little less traffic on it. And then again, a landscape buffer to the homes on the north and south sides of 84th. If you go to the next one. So Lowell Boulevard against parcel B's and parcel A. So again, this section is proposing on-street parking on both sides. We have bike lanes on both sides, and then 2 travel lanes. This section includes a 6-foot tree lawn and a 10-foot walk. And then you can see here, there's an 18-foot landscape buffer on the east side along parcel A where we get to the homes. Again, I'm sorry, Yes, that's correct. These sections vary a little bit depending on which parcel they're adjacent to. So this specific street section is focused on what's adjacent to parcel A. As we just walked through on parcel B, the edge along Lowell Boulevard is all public land dedication. So we will have, a much wider buffer before we get to any homes, since that's all parks and view corridors.
Bonnie, maybe if we can come back, if you don't mind, if we can go back to Lowell, I just want to reinforce that is the street. I actually wanted to allow you to get a drink of coffee. So there we go. But the question that I have here, and we know we get a lot of questions about Lowell, as we should, right? It's that edge of Shaw Heights, the existing neighborhood. And we often talk about how that streetscape, that community, it's not finished, right? It's not complete, particularly the east side of Lowell. As we know, there are not sidewalks, there's not curb and gutter, right? That's just an unfinished street. So people say, well, how in the world could you ever widen this street, right? It's already there. I just want to make that clear. You're talking about we're going to widen it and add all these amenities, the parking, the bike lane, the travel lane, that walk, and then an 18-foot landscape buffer. That all happens on the Uplands site. Is that correct? Like it grows into that site to the east?
Yes, absolutely. So non-uplands parcels of land will not have, the boundary line remains the same on Lowell Boulevard.
Great. And I think there was in our last community meeting, I remember there was a gentleman that was struggling to understand how he was going to be able to back out. He obviously lives right on Lowell, and understanding, were we actually providing more width, if you will, more laneage for him to back out in? I just want to point out again that we're now allowing that 6 foot of parking and then a bike lane of 5 feet before you get to the travel lane. So we're effectively adding 11 feet there to allow people to back out. Today, it's just you're backing into the middle of the road or into the road, right? So we understand that safety challenge. We understand, and we hear you. We think that's a really important thing to add that amenity for the existing public.
Absolutely. And then if we want to zoom in on the federal section, Jasper. So as you all know, Federal Boulevard is a state highway. So we're working with both the city and CDOT to work through the details of this. So just focus on parcel A for a minute, which is the street section that this is cut through. So on the west side of Federal, we're showing a 35-foot landscape buffer. So that is from the edge of the right-of-way before we get to any buildings, we have a 35-foot landscape buffer. And then additional improvements along Federal. So this is really just focused on what the west side looks like. But we have an 8-foot walk, a 12-foot tree lawn, 3 travel lanes, and then you can see there's a median on the east side. So a lot of improvements to Federal to, hopefully help slow down some traffic and make it feel a little bit more pedestrian oriented with an additional sidewalks, street trees, things like that. And then if we look at Irving Street, so Jasper, can you zoom in on that key map specifically? So Irving Street is the north-south street within parcel A. You can see here it has a little bit of a wiggle in the street. So this connects to Irving Street to the north as it exists today, north of 88th, and to Irving Street where it exists today, south of 84th. The reason we have the little bit of the wiggle in the street is to really help slow down cut through traffic. When we have straight street connections, people tend to speed through a little bit more. So we want to be thoughtful with creating wiggles in that street and also incorporating open space along those edges to help slow down traffic and make the street a little bit more pedestrian friendly. So if you can zoom out. So again, this is a brand new street within parcel A. It has 2 travel lanes and then tree lawns and walks within that street section. And then 86, if you could zoom in on that key map a little bit too, wanted to talk through the details of why this street is kind of split the way it is. We really wanted to focus on having that great public land dedication that you saw in the earlier section at 86th and Federal in order to preserve those views for perpetuity. So the street section enters at Federal, that view is preserved with the public land dedication, and then splits into a north and a south street around that park. If you could go over to the street section. So here you can see this is one side of what that street section would look like. So in this view on the left where you see the green, that would be the public land dedication and a median right where it enters Federal. And then we have a 20-foot travel lane, parking, a tree lawn, and a sidewalk. And then some key questions that we'd love to get your feedback on related to street sections. The first one, what else would you like to see in the streetscape buffer areas in the future? So those were those 15 or 18 or 35-foot landscape buffers between the edge of the street right-of-way and where the homes would be built. So any thoughts you have on that, we'd love to hear those. And then the second question, again, focused on those buffer areas. What are your preferences and what you'd like to see in those spaces? Some ideas are native landscape, flowering gardens, open benches, public art, bike parking, tree corridors, or walking paths.
So one thing I'd also like to add here, that kind of more open-ended question there, what else would you like to see in the streetscape buffer areas in the future? You know, there have been a couple of questions where people have suggested like, hey, why not look at roundabouts? Probably a little bit more internal to the site, Bonnie, kind of moving that and using roundabouts. We would love that feedback. Like, give us some ideas there. That's certainly something, and I want to say this, as we talk about the streetscapes, the thing that is hard to understand is that we provide traffic studies, right? Anticipating kind of the additional traffic that will be added because of this development. And then that goes to the city and they then come back, evaluate that information and tell us really the solutions, if you will, the roadway, the pedestrian solutions for that impact. So I just want to say that's a very iterative process. Is that fair, Bonnie? It goes back and forth and really we're responding. What we're showing here is what the city is really prescribing for the site. Is that fair or how does that balance work?
Yeah, so the just kind of street sections in general, we've been working close with the transportation department at the city on the details of what these sections need to include to help traffic function within the site. But we're continuing to work through the details of what these edges might look like. So we have, you know, some initial spaces that are shown in the street sections here, but the actual design details of each of those spaces will be continued to work through as we develop specific site plans. So any thoughts on, you know, preferences within those spaces? We're super early on in the process and would love to hear that feedback as we look through the next level of design solutions on the project.
Great. And I'm going to ask Bonnie, I'll ask this question to you. It may be for Chad if he's on as well, but I just want to be sure. There was a live question that came in that said, will the trees on Lowell block the views to the view corridor? Now, you and I can both think about what that may mean, right? So as we're talking about, of course, the city says like in a tree lawn, right? They require kind of an X number, certain number of trees that you have to put in there, right? So I think that's important to know what the city tells us how many trees have to be put in the tree lawn. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The city has specific design standards. I believe it's related to square footage for how many street trees are required. I would say though, if that's something that you want us to study further with the city, certainly put this in the section in here, that question or comment. And obviously you can certainly reach out to the city and note that as well. I think as we're designing those parks, I think there's still opportunity to work through those details. Maybe the streets are clustered in certain sections to still provide some shading and opportunities for that, but maybe certain corridors are, you know, kept free of trees to preserve the key viewpoints. So I think there's some design opportunities with that. So that's a great example of feedback that you can provide here as we look at designing those spaces with the city.
Yeah, and just to clarify for everyone, I believe the standard is one tree for every 550 square feet. So just to understand, that's kind of how the city goes about that process. But I think it's actually a great question or a great comment. Thank you for making that. The city, that's why, particularly on the PLD, right, that public land dedication that we talked about, they still control that design, right? So the very element that somebody was talking about, hey, if it's a view corridor, we want to preserve that, right? That's certainly something the city, I can never speak for them, but that's something that they will take into account, if you will, when they go about planning and where those trees are sited and so forth. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Hey, there was one other follow-up question while I have you that asked about, is there on our map, right? And this kind of is a little bit park and it's a little bit streetscape. You don't show a lot of parking for the parks. So Bonnie, is there inside of those parks, will there be designated parking areas, or is that only along the streetscape or along the street edges?
Yeah, that's a great point. And maybe we can quick add that as one of the amenity options in this website today still, so people can note that. But if that's an amenity that you want to see in the parks, certainly note that. All those parks are, totally up for design today. We have not designed them. So if parking is the most important amenity for those parks, we certainly want to hear that. So we'll try to get that added into the website slide right away, so that if people want to choose that as their top 3 amenity, they can certainly do that.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then Marcus, I'm going to see if we can just jump in on one more thing that I think we missed on the street sections. Jasper, if you could just go to like an overall map. We wanted to talk just a little bit about why the streets inside Parcel A are organized the way that they are. Yeah, that'll work. So we talked a little bit about Irving, which is the north-south street in Parcel A, and why that's located where it is, but wanted to talk a little bit about the east-west streets in that same regard. So on the north side, we have 87th. Again, we created a bend in there on purpose. We want to slow traffic. We don't want people to use, 87th or 86th or 85th as a cut through to avoid 88th or 84th. Streets are purposely designed as arterials, collectors, locals, so that traffic is funneled in specific ways. So that bend along 87th is specifically created to help slow down traffic. If you go to the south, we have 85th, and that one is specifically located to not align to the west, again, to prevent the cut through traffic that could happen through there. As you all know, we currently have, it doesn't show up in this map, but there's a diagonal connection from 84th to Lowell, which creates a lot of cut through traffic. So we want to slow down that cut through traffic and put people on these collector streets that are generally shown in this map here, and on the busier streets along the perimeter. So just wanted to note the reasons those streets have those bends in them and why they don't necessarily connect to existing local streets. It's really trying to minimize the cut through traffic and use the street system as it's intended.
That's a great, thanks for going back to that, Bonnie. I know that was a question in our last meeting about somebody said, hey, it would make a lot more sense if you made that direct connection, right? And that's probably true from an infrastructure standpoint, but it's the very idea that we don't want to create additional traffic, cut through traffic, if you will, to the neighborhood. So I think that's a design specific where we're trying to solve that issue through design. I just want to say again, like what we're trying to do here, and we can't thank you all enough for taking this time this morning. We've actually got a great crowd of folks that are interacting with us, that are sending us questions, or asking us to kind of go back and forth. And we appreciate that feedback because it really does allow us to see if we're doing things the right way, maybe how to think about them differently, and how to improve and compromise with the community about those edges. So I'll say it again. I said it very clearly. We certainly cannot and will not and do not speak for the city. What we speak for is the way we interact with the city, meaning we facilitate this discussion. We garner as much information as we have, and we're going to share that information back to the city to really show them, hey, here's what we're hearing. You all are going to talk directly to the city as well, and I think that is great. I'd encourage you to do that, but this is just another way to actually in context have some of those discussions. So we appreciate that. I do have two quick questions. We're spending a lot of times kind of on streetscape and parks because those are what people think about, right? But Bonnie, I do want to bring up, we talked about the parking, which was actually a question, right? To have parking. And I think you and I said, hey, let's bring that back. Maybe we'll add that to that list of amenities. To be clear, I mean, parking for a park, right? That's an amenity, if you will, right? It's something that's there, right? I think our idea is probably balancing how much parking you have. We want there to be true connections and trails, right? You think about where these larger parks are located, particularly the PLD. You think about it right across from the schools, right? You want people from Shaw Heights to walk across the street and really enjoy these. We think of these as neighborhood parks. Is that right? Now, some people certainly will drive to this site, right? Maybe they're a mile away and they want to go to the new park and see these new amenities. So is that fair? It's a balance of providing enough parking, but also really making that park live with amenities that are more park-like.
Yeah, absolutely. Creating great connections so people can walk to the parks. But we all know sometimes you've got a couple kids and some coolers and, things that you want to take to the park. So it's really just finding the right balance between appropriate amounts of parking and being able to walk to the park. But also, like some of the street sections we walk through have on-street parking. So those are additional opportunities for people to be able to drive to the parks.
Marcus, you're muted.
I apologize. I was having a lovely conversation. I think there's a number of questions that have just come in about additional questions about the parks and water for those trees. I'm going to come back to those as we work through this next section. So I think, Paul, we're coming to you. Thanks for bringing me that in. But we're going to make that transition, Bonnie, if you're finished with the streetscapes. It's all you, Paul. We're turning to you now to talk a little bit about the architectural character of this site and really try to glean some information from the community. So go right ahead, Paul.
Awesome. Well, thank you. My name is Paul Brady. I'm an architect. I'm one of the owners with God & Civic Architects. We're a local Colorado firm, and we've been hired to help coordinate the architecture of Uplands. My firm and I won't necessarily be designing all the homes in Uplands. Rather, we're here just to kind of provide general guidance and ensure community cohesion, both within Uplands and with the adjacent communities. The architect of each future home will be chosen by the different builders. But your answers today will help inform the guidance we provide to those builders. So big picture Uplands, it's a new urbanist neighborhood. It's designed to encourage community connections, and so houses are going to be built on small lots. The neighborhoods will be pedestrian friendly, and there will be a good mix of house types and uses within those. They're generally going to have alley-loaded garages and front porches. We're not prescribing a singular architectural style. The architecture is instead focusing on quality elements. So like human scale design, for instance, front porches, and the belief that combining appropriate design elements makes great places rather than just one small part being amazing. So the result will be an inviting place with the character of an established neighborhood like historic South Westminster, but it'll live like new. So combined with city documents like the design guidelines they have for the traditional mixed-use neighborhood developments, we want your feedback today to help focus that vision. So many of you have seen this map before. The darkest colors show the highest densities. And that means multifamily housing, and the lighter colors, lower densities to the west. So these colors depict an average, and we intend to intermix the different types of housing on each block to provide variety. So for instance, the darkest colors north and south of 86th and on either side of Federal they're the only areas that allow multifamily housing, but we expect other housing types in those areas like townhomes. So it's not just all apartments and condos. Another area, the dark orange northwest of 84th and Federal, it's designated as a medium density, but we still expect single family housing to be mixed within that area. And so in total, these mixes, we expect roughly equal amounts of each type. So for the discussion purposes today, we see the housing types broadly falling into 3 categories: single family detached, single family attached, which is duplexes and townhomes, and multifamily, condos and apartments. And so in this charrette, we want to show you examples of those different types of housing and get your feedback on what you like and don't. So let's go to Conveo. At the top, there's the tab for architecture, and you hit architecture, and it'll take you to 6 different vision boards. Before we get to those vision boards, let me point out that they're similar buildings built in various locations. None of these are proposed for uplands. They're just representative architectural styles and homes to elicit input from you today. So the first is single family housing. And we have 4 options here. And when you click on the blue button, it asks you to pick your top 2. Based on the feedback we've heard to date, we've heard that, and expect styles like images A and B to be more preferable, but we want to see if you agree. The next one down, there's 5 of these, and they're all generally the same. They're just different types of housing. Hit the blue button and pick the 2 that you think are the most preferred.
So I'm going to come in there for a question, Paul. I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you can roll back actually up to those single family images that are there. So, Paul, when we show images like this, and we certainly, and you as an architect, you understand the style of the home, right? What it reflects, kind of the way the house lives. So, when we show images like this, you're saying, hey, this isn't for sure the exact home, but it's certainly the style. It has the materials, the context, the way the front porch is, right? You're able to kind of defer or understand, infer from the information we hear from people about the style that they want to see here. Is that fair?
Yeah, none of these are proposed for uplands, but the ones on the screen here, we expect homes of this shape and size within uplands. They're alley loaded, so the garage is off the alley. Most of them have front porches, but they're of different styles. Some have stucco, some have masonry, some have siding. That's what we kind of want to get the feedback on, is which one of these is the most interesting or appealing or appropriate in the neighborhood's opinion that fits within uplands.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I think it's such an important thing that we're doing here. We've actually heard, Paul, you've been on the team from the very beginning. This is one of the first questions we hear about, right? Is we hear about architectural characteristics, the character of that neighborhood, right? How it blends. Does it honor Shaw Heights? Does it transition from that? So I think we just, as a team, we will then work with individual builders, as you said. We're going to help inform them about the architectural style, what's going to work here, what fits kind of a pattern book, if you will, what reflects really that vision that we've heard from the community. Is that how you see the back and forth with the builders?
Exactly. And so based on that involvement from the beginning, I've been able to hear a lot of input from everybody involved with the process, and I can take that straight to the builders that are going to be involved as a professional, and I can translate, oh, we've heard image D on the slide here is really popular. And I can tell them to a greater depth of what that means and help guide their proposal. Maybe they put 5 images or options in front of us, and I can say, I think that one's too contemporary. The feedback we've heard is elements that make it feel like it's in Colorado, natural materials, that type of feedback, and I can give that point of direction and work one-on-one with the builder to make sure that that architecture meets the neighbors' expectations, meets a minimum level of quality, and it's
Great.
all cohesive together.
Do you just, and this is more, maybe we don't know the final answer yet, but just asking a question that came in, do you see any ranch style homes potentially on this site or on any of the parcels?
Potentially. It likely won't be the most prevalent building type.
That makes sense. I mean, we're seeing, and a lot of the images you're showing here are two-story, more traditional home, if you will. I think it's really honoring, we get that question. Of course, a lot of people love, a ranch feel today, the way it lives. There's certainly a lot of ranch style if you think about Shaw Heights. The one thing I will say about that is that was, kind of a larger lot format as well, right? So one thing we're trying to do is really work within those guidelines that are in this underlying zone district, right? And reflect what the city, what the guiding documents are telling us that kind of needs to be in place as well.
And so going back to the spirit of the neighborhood, being that traditional mixed use neighborhood, being compact, having that neighborhood town center, we want it to be walkable. And so the larger lots, you just have to walk a further distance. And to have enough rooftops to support a coffee shop or some of these other uses. It's just part of that overall equation.
Great, thank you.
And so here, duplexes, townhomes, that's what I mean by single family attached. And then the final two are multifamily options. So at the bottom of the page, like the other tabs, we have some open-ended questions. We know it's impossible to select images that capture all the options and elements of architecture that are out there. So this is your opportunity to help provide feedback. We look forward to your opinions, and we really thank you guys for your time.
Great. Thanks, Paul. Before we go to the next category, I do want to say there was a question that, can we speak, if you will, for the builders? Yes, we can. This is a master plan community, and so we're not saying these are the exact styles, the exact homes. What we can do is work with them collaboratively to really inform. Hey, here's what we've heard from the neighborhoods. There was a great comment earlier about how the neighborhoods are able to communicate directly with the city and with us and kind of go through that process. We agree, and frankly, we'll certainly encourage our builders to work with you as neighbors as well. It is important to understand that transition. I think what we want to do is really provide reflections, if you will, of the TMUND. That's the underlying zone district in Parcel A, that largest parcel that we have. The TMUND has characteristics that lend to certain home styles, right? And so we're showing you those home styles. We want to understand from you what makes that transition better, what makes it live better from your existing neighborhood as it transitions into the upland space. So Paul, I know we'll get more questions on that, but I think it's really imperative that we continue to work with those builders, and that certainly is our plan as we work through this process. Great.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, good. We're going to transition out here to our final of the four categories. We're going to go back to Bonnie. And this is an area that we have probably not spent as much time speaking about. It's the Village Center. And Bonnie, I really want you to focus on, you'll lead us into what this is. One thing that I would do is I would provide a question that's already been answered. And it was a question that was about when you look at the existing city, there's a lot of empty buildings, commercial buildings, other types of buildings, right? And so why would you provide more here? And I would say that to you as kind of a challenge, and also reflecting on maybe Summit Square, some of the opportunities there, maybe some of the improvements that you think this does. What does this bring to the area as a whole? And does this also lead to perhaps future improvements or enrichments of the properties surrounding the site? So that's just a question. I don't know if that's right, but I'll throw it your way and you can talk about the Village Center.
Perfect, thank you. Jasper, if you could hop over to the next slide. So as Marcus said, we're going to talk about the location of the Village Center, the uses of the Village Center, and again, walk through a couple items on the Conveo website for providing feedback. So here, the Village Center is the kind of the brick red with the hatch area of land at 86 and Federal Boulevard. We're going to walk through some just initial concepts on this. This area will continue to be studied in quite a bit of detail. We're setting up a basic framework for the two parcels today with our PDP and master ODP, but these details will continue to be refined as we go through the site-specific official development plan with the city. So there'll be additional opportunities for feedback on this area. And as Marcus said, this is really the first time we've presented any of this, so would love to hear your feedback or questions, comments on this as we continue to look at this. So some of the key framework pieces of this, they're listed here on the left side. So again, within this kind of brick red color, we'll have a minimum of 30,000 square feet of commercial uses. The key to this is part of the city's, kind of master plan with the TMUND land use designation is creating a mix of uses. So creating, walkable neighborhoods that have places for coffee shops, small retail stores, potentially live work spaces, things like that, to help activate and give people the opportunity to walk to spaces like this. Get out of your cars, give you another opportunity to get to a restaurant, walking to that. So we strategically located the Village Center at the intersection of 86th and Federal. Part of that reason is since Federal is such a thoroughfare for the city, it helps activate that entry, but it also helps work with the existing and proposed uses on both sides of Federal. So you can see we already have the Crown Point Academy, which is a school, and then there's the Summit Square retail. To the north of that in PAC, that land currently has a land use designation of mixed use as well. So really all the mixed use and commercial uses are along this Federal Boulevard, both sides of that street, to really help activate and work synergistically together. The addition of new residents to Westminster will help bring additional retail opportunities to this area. We want to hear what kind of uses you think are missing in the area and that you would like to see here, and we'll continue to explore those ideas. In addition to the 30,000 square feet of commercial uses, the current PDP and master ODP have a maximum of 631 residential homes. This is the only parcel or planning area within parcel A that allows multifamily uses, as Paul just walked through. So this will include a mix of single family and multifamily uses. We also have the 10-acre public park at the center. And we have a maximum height of 65. Again, this is the only portion of parcel A that allows the height of 65 feet, really trying to create an invigorating village center to help activate and hopefully make those commercial uses get built and be successful. So with that, Jasper, if you want to head over to the Conveo website. So again, going up to the top, you see the Village Center button. Clicking to that, you can see this slide that we walked through that has those general kind of quantitative parameters for the Village Center. And then here we have just a concept for how this Village Center might work. So again, love to hear feedback on this, but just to give a little bit of an orientation on here, on the right side of this concept plan, sorry if you could go, yeah, there you go. On the right side, you can see that's Federal Boulevard, and then the east-west street is 86th. So this concept shows on the north side of 86th, that might be a single-story retail building or a multi-story mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor. That item 8 to the north of that is showing surface parking. So that parking is, tucked behind the building from 86th. Really want to activate 86th with storefronts. Item 11 here is showing an amenity space. Maybe that's a co-working space, an Uplands coffee shop, things like that. If you go south along the street, you can see different paving materials. and crosswalks. Really want to make sure that this space is walkable so that people can get to both sides of 86 and the commercial uses that will exist there, and work synergistically with the public land dedication. So item 3, kind of in the middle of the concept, this is that eastern edge of the public land dedication and really focuses those views to the west across that public land dedication. If you go to the south side of 86th, where we have item number 4, that's showing a public plaza. So really focusing on, kind of an urban streetscape, which you can see examples of shortly. Item number 9. So this whole building that you're seeing on the south side, that might be a larger mixed use building, perhaps again retail on the ground floor with multifamily uses above it, and then could include structured parking. So 9 is that potential structured parking that would be hidden from view from 86, but provide additional parking for this village center. And then number 10 on the left side of the image, that's where we start transitioning to maybe townhomes or row homes and eventually single family homes. So really trying to create a dynamic and interesting public realm, place for people to walk to and utilize smaller retail shops, coffee shops, restaurants, things like that. We go to the next slide. So again, here's an opportunity to provide some feedback. So we've listed a bunch of different types of uses that could show up in the village center: restaurants, office, markets, residential uses, places for things like farmers markets or community events. So again, if you go over to that blue button, you can say which of those 3 amenities would be your top 3 choices. And then again, don't forget to hit the submit button on the bottom to save those choices. And then the next section, want to talk a little bit about the public realm and the streetscape and the plazas. What kind of spaces would you like to see? If we have restaurants, do they have on street, kind of sidewalk seating, places like that? Do you want to see things like co-working spaces or small little coffee shops? So again, you can kind of zoom in on each of these different images to study in a little bit more detail. So maybe just if we pick, maybe if you go to image number 5, just zoom in on that one. So this one is showing, a restaurant use with some street side restaurant seating. You can see kind of a more urban sidewalk with planters. So if that's something you'd like to see along the village center, like go ahead and select number 5 as one of your preferences. And then just a couple open-ended questions to get some feedback on as well. What are essential building blocks of successful community gathering spaces? So if you think of the spaces that you like to spend your free time on, what is it that you really like about that space? Like what draws you to it? And then the second one, tell us about an existing village center, or really just a mixed use neighborhood within the Metro Denver region that has, great architectural styles and landscape styles that you enjoy spending time in. So what's your favorite place? That'll help give us an idea of what kind of things everyone likes and how we might be able to incorporate them into the Uplands Village Center.
Yeah, Bonnie, I just wanted to add here that on these open-ended questions, if you will, again, like we just encourage people, share what they want to share, right? There was a gentleman that said he had some other images that he was thinking of, or what if he didn't like any of the elements or blend some of them together, right? Like a combination of that. Terrific. Tell us about that. We'd love to hear your comment about it. Again, I think it's really important to understand, to try to garner that feedback. Again, this is a platform. We're trying our very best in the COVID age to really allow that feedback, to allow organic and holistic planning of this site. I do have Bonnie or maybe Jasper, if you could kind of roll back to the overall map in this section. that talks about maybe there. One thing I just want to clarify, Bonnie, because there's been a couple of questions about it. Someone even intimated that I don't know if we need another village center, right? So I just want to kind of set the table here. Parcel A, which is the largest parcel on this site that everybody sees here, 84th to 88th Lowell to Federal. That has been TMUND, that is the land use category. That's in the comprehensive plan. And I believe that has been in the comp plan since, do you know when that is? Is that 2012, 2013, something like that?
I don't have the exact date, but it's either that year or potentially even older than that. It was before any of our involvement in the design of this site.
And so what I think is important, and I think it is 2013, if I remember, when it went to TMUN specifically, right, to that land use category. What's important about that is the city planners, the people that worked on the comprehensive plan, they said, I don't care who Uplands is. I don't know who the developer of this site is. This is what we foresee that is right here from the context, the corridors, the infrastructure that's there. This is what we believe is right for the city to have. So when we plan something like a village center, that is because this is what the comp plan says this should be. And then it says village center is part of that. And it says, here's what the village center looks like. It says it's a maximum of 65 feet, right? It has those characteristics already built into the comp plan land use category. Is that correct? Or how do we comport with that existing land use category?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the comp plan land use designations are, kind of a 35,000 foot level of planning. So the city staff, those plans are ultimately adopted by city council. That helps share the vision for the entire city with what they hope to see achieved in these future development sites. So we study those plans, we read them in a lot of detail. We work with the city to figure out how to implement those kind of 35,000 foot high design solutions that the city has envisioned for the site. And so the key piece to that in this parcel A location is the village center at 86th and Federal. And so working with the parameters of TMUND and what the world looks like today to design a solution that accomplishes those and overall vision goals.
Great. I just wanted to clarify that. I think sometimes it's, hey, we're thinking of this is the right use there. I mean, I'll say from a planning perspective, when we look at this overall site, one thing that we have tried to say from the very beginning to now is that we're trying to really honor the edges, that existing community, the community edges that are there. And that's why as we transition across Lowell from Shaw Boulevard or Shaw Heights, you see single family and you see parks, right? You see public land dedication. You really see this very gradual, low density transition from them. Observatory Heights is the lowest density that we have on the site, our parcel B, right? We show maybe just that really transition to honor the neighborhood that is there, to make that to then transition to the apartments that are just north of parcel B. And you look at parcel A, that federal corridor, that is a higher trafficked area. It's a major street. It has an RTD stop there. It is something that up and down Federal Boulevard, you expect to see more of a 3 or 4 story, really match that kind of apartment multifamily character. So we've tried to honor that in all the edges. I think if we would go down to parcel D, and we're not spending a lot of time here today on parcel D, but it's again transitioning to that existing product. Is that fair, Bonnie? We've followed what the city and the comp plan has in place, and we've tried to really blend it into the existing fabric.
Exactly, both what the comp plan says and what the context, what exists there today. So trying to put, lower density, single family, detached and attached homes against adjacent single family detached homes, trying to put the more intense multifamily and commercial uses along Federal, where those uses either exist today or are proposed today as part of the city's comprehensive plan.
Great, terrific. All right. Sorry for all the questions there. I think we've moved through a lot of these. Are you finished in this category, Bonnie?
I think I am.
Well, folks, that may be that we have worked very diligently through all of these 4 sections. I will say I expected this to be a 30 or 45-minute conversation. We're at about an hour and 15 minutes. So I do want to say to all of our participants how much we value your feedback, how much we value your comments. know that some people would rather there just not be developments. We understand that. We understand that frustration, if you will, but our desire, and we mean that as honestly and straightforward and, that we can, is that if we're going to develop this, we want it to be the best that it can be, to really reflect that feedback from the community and do everything we can. So I am certain that there is frustration from time to time. We don't want you to ever think that we're saying, hey, we can do this better than you can think of. Frankly, we're saying, no, we think you know your neighborhood far better than we do. We want to understand that. We want to learn from you all. And we really do want to try to find the best design solutions to really complement your neighborhood, not be better, not anything like that, to really blend into your existing fabric. So we're just trying to find ways to do that. I just want to say again, thank you for your time. We are going to do this meeting again. We're going to repeat it on this Wednesday from 6 to 7:30. We're going to have this meeting again. There's a whole page in front of you that goes through how you can go through this. If you registered, we'll send you an email with the link to go right directly to the Conveo site. You can go to uplandscolorado.com and go to the resources page, and you can find that. And then if you just want extra help, you can use info@uplandscolorado.com. I think I started my part of this and I said, you can call me at my office. My number again is 303-825-1671. We will be as diligent as we can to kind of go through that. 303-825-1671. Some folks are saying, hey, we're hearing some questions. I'm sure there's some written questions as well. We will continue to answer those as we have. I do want to say that the point of today is to help everyone go work through this website. This is not to solicit a number of questions and then provide written answers again, like we've done in previous meetings. What we want to do is ask you respectfully to go spend a little time whenever you want, day or night, and go to the website and go through this process and give us feedback. We hope constructive feedback, things that we can really implement in, but we'd love to hear from you more about this. So I think with that, I'm going to just say that this is probably the formal part of the questions, right? The formal part of the back and forth that we have here from our presenters. We are going to continue to stay on. So I'm just acknowledging to all our participants that and attendees that we'll probably stop talking now. It's probably more going through some of the questions that we received and answering them live. But if somebody does have a question, feel free to add it and we'll try to come back on and talk about it. We'll stay here for another 15 minutes till 12:30. But we think this is a terrific resource. We hope that you will share it. We hope that you will use your platforms, your social media to send this link and encourage people in your neighborhoods to give us feedback as well. So genuinely, on behalf of our entire team, thanks for spending some time with us on Saturday. If I did miss any of your questions, we'll try to get back to those. Again, we've provided a lot of contact information, and we will have this as well on the website. So you don't have to write it down. You can just go to the website and have all this at your fingertips. So I'm going to just go back through the team and be sure if there's anything else anybody needs to add or something I've missed, I'll let our team clarify. Looks like Bonnie's okay. I think Paul's okay. I'm not seeing anything pop up. So I'm going to just sign off officially and tell everybody thank you again for joining us. We do appreciate you joining us for this digital design workshop. We'll look forward to working with you in the next number of weeks. Thank you very much. just adding for the folks, we still have a few attendees that are with us. And again, we'd encourage you, you're more than welcome to stay with us. We probably don't have any more formal presentation, but I will say, if you have additional questions, you want a Q&A, use that. I'm happy to do that. I appreciate, again, your diligence in kind of working through this. I know we had a number of people ask numerous questions and go back and forth. We're trying to work through those. I'd encourage you to call me or to use this phone or this process, the different ways to contact our team that we have provided. But again, this is a terrific format. I will make sure as well, one thing that's so helpful about having 2 runs of this is that we're able to think about your questions and maybe add additional clarifications into our material. Is there something that we didn't understand? Maybe back to that streetscape. I thought that was such a good question about the view corridors and will the trees block those kind of historic or regarded view corridors. So we'll maybe get some clarification on that and actually ask a follow-up question. So again, we appreciate your comments. I think that's our formal presentation has ended, but you're welcome to stay on for the next 15 minutes or 10 minutes. If you've tried to log in and you're having questions, our team is certainly available to help with that as well. So thanks again. folks, we've got 5 or 6 minutes left here. Just probably signing out. I think we have just the same participants or some of the same participants. We haven't had anybody new join us. So we'll stay on. I just, we really appreciate everybody's time today. This has been a great learning experience for us, and maybe even thinking about ways we can improve this platform and continue to make it better, perfect the process. So I don't see any new questions or comments. We really do appreciate your time. We're going to let everybody get 5 minutes of their Saturday back, and we will be here on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And we would again encourage you to share this platform, to go to your social media, to encourage your neighbors to really use this, because this is really a terrific device to hear from you, to learn from you, and go through that process. So I'm going to give us a few minutes here, and we're going to sign off of the platform. I hope everyone has a terrific Saturday, and thank you very much for being here today. Bye-bye.